Marcus Reynolds stared at the gleaming quantum-sealed container sitting in his laboratory, its surface rippling with iridescent patterns that shouldn't have been possible according to known physics. The delivery drone had deposited it without ceremony, just another package among thousands that arrived daily at the Ganymede research station. Except this one wasn't supposed to exist. "Computer, run authentication scan again," Marcus commanded, his weathered features reflected in the container's surface. 20 years in the Space Corps followed by 5 years as a xenotechnology researcher had taught him that impossible things usually meant trouble. Authentication confirmed. Package originates from Diplomatic Corps, Delta clearance, the AI responded. Warning, temporal anomaly detected in containment field. Marcus ran his fingers through his graying hair, a habit from his military days that surfaced whenever something didn't add up. Delta clearance meant this package came from the highest levels of Earth's government, levels that officially didn't exist. The last time he'd encountered anything with that classification was during the Proxima incident, and that had nearly started an interstellar war. The container hummed softly, its surface temperature dropping rapidly. Frost began forming around its edges, spreading in crystalline patterns that seemed to follow some alien geometry. Marcus reached for his comm unit, then stopped. Protocol dictated he should report this immediately to station security. Protocol also dictated that Delta clearance materials were beyond standard reporting requirements. The decision was made for him when the container's surface suddenly rippled like liquid mercury, and a holographic interface materialized in the air above it. Glowing symbols in an unknown language scrolled past, then resolved into English. Diplomatic emergency protocol activated. Ambassador Nyari of the Stellar Concordat requires immediate assistance. Authorization, Omega 7. Marcus's breath caught in his throat. The Stellar Concordat was the most mysterious of the known alien civilizations, having made contact with humanity only once, decades ago. Their technology was centuries beyond Earth's understanding, and their representatives were rarely seen outside their own territory. The container's surface began to dissolve, revealing a crystalline stasis chamber within. Through its translucent walls, Marcus could make out a humanoid figure, its skin a pale lavender color that seemed to shift and change in the laboratory's harsh lighting. Various tubes and monitoring devices were attached to the figure's body, all pulsing with soft blue light. Life support critical, the holographic interface announced. Immediate revival required. Please confirm authorization. Marcus's hand hovered over the interface. Everything about this situation screamed trap, yet his instincts, the same ones that had kept him alive through countless combat drops and first contact situations, told him something else was at play here. This wasn't a weapon or a trick, it was a cry for help. Authorization confirmed, he said firmly. Begin revival sequence. The stasis chamber hummed to life, its crystal surfaces becoming transparent as the revival process began. The figure within stirred slightly, and Marcus found himself looking into eyes that shimmered like opals, reflecting colors that had no names in human language. The ambassador's lips moved, forming words in perfect English. Thank you, Marcus Reynolds. I apologize for the unusual circumstances, but I had no choice. They're coming, and you're the only one who can help prevent a catastrophe that will affect both our civilizations. Before Marcus could respond, the station's security alarms began blaring. On his monitors, he could see multiple ships dropping out of hyperspace, ships that matched no known configuration in human or alien databases. The ambassador's eyes met his, filled with urgent purpose. We have approximately 17 minutes before they breach this station's defenses. In that time, I must tell you something that will change everything you think you know about humanity's place in the galaxy. Marcus quickly sealed his laboratory's blast doors and activated the emergency protocols he'd installed years ago, protocols that even the station's administration didn't know about. As he turned back to the ambassador, he couldn't help but smile grimly. Some part of him had known that retirement from the Space Corps would never last. Start talking, he said, already running through combat scenarios in his head. And make it quick. 17 minutes isn't much time to save two civilizations. Our civilizations have been manipulated, Ambassador Nyari said, her voice growing stronger as the revival process completed. She gracefully disconnected the monitoring devices from her lavender skin, each movement precise despite her recent awakening. There are forces that benefit from keeping humanity and the Concordat separated. Marcus worked quickly at his terminal, rerouting security systems and establishing false signals to mask their location within the station. The approaching ships had slowed their advance, but their intent was clear: they were searching methodically, level by level. "That's fascinating," Marcus replied, his fingers flying over the holographic controls, "but I'm more interested in why they're willing to risk an interstellar incident by attacking a human research station." He pulled up the station's schematics, marking potential escape routes. "And why you chose me specifically?" Nyari moved to stand beside him, her presence causing the nearby instruments to fluctuate wildly. "Because you were there during the Proxima incident, Marcus. You saw something you weren't supposed to see, something that's been haunting your dreams for the past 5 years." Marcus's hands froze over the controls. The dreams. The impossible patterns he'd seen in the space between spaces during that fateful mission. The things that couldn't exist according to either human or known alien physics. "The beings you glimpsed," Nyari continued, "they're called the architects. They exist in dimensions beyond our comprehension, and they've been guiding both our species' development for millennia. But their guidance isn't as benevolent as we once believed." A warning flashed across Marcus's screens: the unknown ships had begun a systematic override of the station's security protocols. They were good, but Marcus hadn't spent 5 years paranoid without learning a few tricks. His countermeasures would buy them time, but not much. "The package you arrived in," Marcus said, leading them toward a maintenance shaft hidden behind a false wall panel. "That's their technology, isn't it? Not Concordat?" "Yes." Nyari's opal eyes seemed to look through him, reading thoughts he hadn't even formed yet. "They gave us the gift of faster-than-light travel, medical technologies beyond imagination, even the ability to translate languages instantly. But every gift came with a price we didn't understand until it was too late. The maintenance shaft was narrow, designed for repaired drones rather than humans. Marcus had modified it years ago, widening certain sections and adding his own security measures. As they climbed downward, the sounds of the station's alarms grew distant. "Those ships up there," Marcus said between breaths, "they're not trying to capture you. They're trying to silence you." "Correct." Nyari moved through the shaft with inhuman grace, her body seeming to flow around obstacles. "The architects have agents everywhere, humans, Concordat, and other species you haven't encountered yet. They maintain their control by keeping us divided, suspicious of each other." They emerged in a small chamber Marcus had constructed off the station's official blueprints. Emergency supplies lined the walls, along with weapons that definitely weren't standard research equipment. He'd been called paranoid for maintaining his military habits. Now those habits might save their lives. "Here's what I don't understand," Marcus said, quickly checking a pulse rifle's charge. "If these architects are so powerful, why go through all this elaborate manipulation? Why not just control us directly?" Nyari's expression shifted to something almost like a smile, but with an alien sadness behind it. "Because they're dying, Marcus. Their power is fading, and they're desperate to maintain control of what they consider their greatest experiment, the development and interaction of sentient species." A deep rumble shook the station, and new alarms began blaring. The unknown ships had begun their invasion. "They're not just after me," Nyari said urgently. "They're after the data crystal hidden within my stasis chamber. It contains proof of their manipulation, proof that could unite humanity and the Concordat against them. But more importantly, it contains the key to understanding their technology without their control." Marcus checked his tactical display. Multiple breach points across the station. Security forces were responding, but they'd be overwhelmed quickly by technology they couldn't understand. He had maybe 5 minutes to make a decision that could affect the future of 2 civilizations. The nearest emergency shuttle bay is 2 levels down, he said, hefting the pulse rifle. But we'll have to cross through maintenance spaces that are probably already being searched. You don't seem surprised by any of this, Nyari observed, accepting a smaller weapon he offered her. Marcus smiled grimly. I've spent 5 years trying to understand what I saw during the Proxima incident. 5 years knowing that something impossible was out there, pulling strings we couldn't see. He checked the corridor through a hidden observation port. Finding out there's a vast conspiracy of higher-dimensional beings manipulating multiple civilizations? That actually explains a lot. And you believe me? Nyari asked, her opal eyes studying him intently. Just like that? Let's just say I've been waiting for someone to confirm I wasn't crazy. Marcus activated the chamber's exit sequence. Besides, if you were lying, those ships up there wouldn't be trying so hard to find us. As they prepared to enter the corridor, Nyari placed a hand on his arm. Her touch sent a strange tingling sensation through his body, like static electricity but somehow more profound. Once we expose the truth, she said softly, nothing will ever be the same. Both our civilizations will have to confront realities they're not prepared for. Marcus checked his weapon one final time. Maybe it's time for things to change. Ready? Nyari nodded, her alien features set with determination. Ready. They stepped into the corridor together, moving as one unit toward an uncertain future, while above them, agents of beings beyond comprehension searched with increasing desperation for secrets that could unravel their millennia of careful manipulation. The game of shadows and secrets was about to end. The real question was, what would emerge from the chaos that followed? The maintenance corridors of Ganymede Research Station had never been designed for combat. Marcus and Nyari moved swiftly through the narrow spaces, their footsteps echoing off metal walls as distant explosions rocked the station. The invasion forces were moving faster than expected, their advanced technology making short work of standard security measures. We've got a problem, Marcus whispered, checking his tactical display. They're not just searching randomly anymore. They're hurting us. He pointed to the holographic map, where multiple hostile signatures were systematically closing off escape routes. They're using probability mapping, Nyari replied, her opal eyes reflecting the dim emergency lighting. The architects gave them technology that can predict likely human behavior patterns. But they don't know about your modifications to the station, do they? Marcus allowed himself a small smile. No, they don't. But we're still running out of options. He tapped a sequence into his wrist computer, and a hidden panel slid open in the wall. This way. It's a maintenance shaft I converted into an emergency route. Lead straight to the shuttle bay. They had barely taken 3 steps when Marcus's comm unit crackled to life. Reynolds? This is Director Vaughn. Come in, please. The voice was familiar, Marcus had worked under Vaughn for the past 5 years. But something in the director's tone set off warning bells. Nyari tensed beside him, her lavender skin shifting colors slightly. Be careful, she whispered. The architect's agents are extremely skilled at manipulation. Marcus nodded and activated his comm. This is Reynolds. Little busy at the moment, Director. Marcus, thank God. Vaughn's voice oozed relief. Listen carefully. Those ships up there? They're Concordat security forces. The alien you're with is a terrorist. She stole classified technology and fled their space. They just want her back. If we cooperate, they'll leave peacefully. Marcus glanced at Nyari, who shook her head slowly. He'd expected something like this, but hearing the lies from someone he'd trusted still stung. Interesting story, Director, Marcus replied, keeping his voice neutral. Just one problem, I've seen Concordat ships before. These aren't them. Want to try again? There was a pause, then Vaughn's voice returned, harder now. Don't be stupid, Reynolds. You're a researcher, not a soldier anymore. Stand down, hand over the alien, and we can all walk away from this. Marcus clicked off the comm and turned to Nyari. How long have they had him? The director? Probably since before you arrived at the station. Nyari's expression was grim. The architects place their agents carefully, usually in positions of authority. They've been preparing for something like this for centuries. A massive explosion above them shook loose debris from the ceiling. Their pursuers were getting desperate. The data crystal, Marcus said as they resumed their journey through the hidden passage. What's on it that has them so scared? Nyari's voice dropped to barely above a whisper. Proof that they've been manipulating both our species' genetic development. But more importantly, it contains the key to understanding their technology without their control. Humanity and the Concordat working together could break free from their influence entirely. They reached a junction where 3 passages met. Marcus checked his tactical display again and swore softly. They're adapting to our movement patterns. Even with my hidden routes, they'll catch us before we reach the shuttle bay. He turned to Nyari, his expression serious. Unless we give them something else to chase. Understanding dawned in her opal eyes. A diversion? Marcus nodded, already pulling equipment from his pack. I've got some toys left over from my core days. Remote-controlled drones, holographic projectors, the works. We can make them think we're heading for the main hangar while we take the long way around to the emergency shuttles. They'll see through it eventually, Nyari warned. We don't need eventually. We just need enough time. Marcus set up the first drone, programming it with basic movement patterns. But first, I need to know something. He turned to face her directly. The Proxima incident, what really happened out there? Nyari was quiet for a long moment, her alien features unreadable. Finally, she spoke. It wasn't an accident, Marcus. The dimensional breach you witnessed? It was deliberately engineered by the architects to test humanity's response to certain stimuli. Your ship wasn't supposed to survive. When it did, when you saw what you weren't supposed to see, they marked you for observation. Marcus absorbed this information, feeling pieces of a 5-year-old puzzle finally clicking into place. That's why I was offered this position at the station. They wanted to keep me where they could watch me. Yes. But they underestimated you. Your paranoia, your preparations, they didn't realize that what you saw that day would drive you to take such precautions. Nyari's hand touched his arm again, sending that strange tingling sensation through him. In trying to control you, they created exactly the person I needed to find. Another explosion rocked the station, closer this time. Marcus activated the drones, sending them scurrying down the main corridors with holographic projections of himself and Nyari running alongside them. Ready for the hard part? He asked, checking his weapon one final time. We'll have to cross 3 sections of main corridor to reach the emergency shuttles, Nyari said, her own weapon held confidently. They'll be watching. Then we'll give them something to watch. Marcus grinned, the expression more predatory than humorous. I didn't spend 20 years in the Corps without learning a few tricks about causing chaos. As they prepared to move, Nyari caught his eye. Marcus, if we succeed, if we expose the truth, both our civilizations will face challenges we can't imagine. The architect's influence runs deep. Maybe it's time for both our species to grow up, Marcus replied. Face the universe on our own terms. He checked the corridor one final time. Ready? Nyari nodded, her opal eyes gleaming with determination. Ready. Together, they stepped into the corridor, ready to face whatever came next. Above them, the architect's agents continued their search, unaware that their carefully maintained web of control was about to unravel, not through force or superior technology, but through the simple human traits of paranoia, preparation, and the stubborn refusal to accept things at face value. The game was approaching its endgame, and the rules were about to change forever. The emergency shuttle bay was a stark contrast to the chaos engulfing the rest of the station. Marcus's security overrides had sealed it off from the main systems, leaving it in an eerie state of calm. The only sound was the soft hum of backup generators and their own careful footsteps as they approached the single shuttle waiting in its launch cradle. "Something's wrong," Marcus whispered, his combat instincts screaming warnings. This was too easy. He scanned the seemingly empty bay, pulse rifle ready. Years of experience told him they were walking into a trap, but they had no choice, it was their only way off the station. Nyari's opal eyes swept the chamber, her alien senses detecting things beyond human perception. "They're here," she confirmed softly. "Multiple positions. The architect's technology allows them to bend light around themselves." "Of course it does," Marcus muttered. He'd suspected they'd face something like this, which was why he'd prepared one last surprise. "Remember what I said about chaos?" Before Nyari could respond, Marcus pulled a small device from his pocket and pressed a button. Instantly, every light in the bay began strobing at random intervals, accompanied by a piercing subsonic pulse that made human ears ring. In the flickering chaos, several shadows suddenly became visible, humanoid figures in advanced stealth suits, their outlines distorted by malfunctioning cloaking fields. "Move!" Marcus shouted, opening fire at the nearest shadow while pushing Nyari toward the shuttle. His modified pulse rifle's charges were specially calibrated to disrupt the quantum fields protecting their attackers, rendering their advanced armor temporarily vulnerable. The bay erupted into chaos. The architect's agents returned fire with weapons that seemed to bend reality itself, leaving glowing tears in the air where their shots passed. Marcus and Nyari dove behind a cargo container, feeling the heat as reality-warping energy scorched the metal behind them. "The shuttle's only 30 meters away," Marcus said, quickly reloading. "But they've got us pinned down." He risked a glance around the container and immediately pulled back as another burst of fire melted the corner where his head had been. "There's something you should know," Nyari said, her voice urgent. She reached into a hidden pocket and withdrew a small crystalline object that pulsed with inner light. "The data crystal, it's not just information about their manipulation. It's the key to their entire network. With it, we could potentially shut down their technology across both our civilizations." Marcus stared at the crystal, understanding dawning. "That's why they're willing to risk exposing themselves like this. That thing could undo centuries of their work." He checked his tactical display, counting at least 8 hostile signatures converging on their position. "But we'll never make it to the shuttle. Unless..." He reached into his pack and pulled out his last piece of salvaged military hardware, a quantum pulse grenade, technically classified as a war crime under 3 different treaties. "Think your crystal can survive an electromagnetic pulse strong enough to fry every piece of tech in this bay?" Nyari's eyes widened as she recognized the device. "The crystal's protected by quantum shielding. But the shuttle will be fine. I modified its systems years ago, shielded everything important." Marcus managed a grim smile. "Like I said, paranoia has its uses." Another barrage of reality-warping fire forced them lower behind the container, which was rapidly melting under the assault. They were out of time. "Marcus," Nyari said quickly, "there's something else you need to know. The Proxima incident, it wasn't just a test. What you saw, what drove you to become so prepared, they were afraid of that. Afraid that humans might naturally evolve to perceive their level of reality without their guidance." Marcus absorbed this information, feeling pieces of a larger puzzle finally clicking into place. "You mean? You're not paranoid, Marcus. You're evolving. That's why I had to find you specifically. The crystal isn't just data, it's a key to unlocking that potential in others." Nyari's hand found his, that strange tingling sensation now feeling almost familiar. Are you ready to change everything? Marcus looked at their attackers' positions one last time, then at the shuttle waiting tantalizingly close by. Everything in his life, his military service, his unexplained experiences, his years of preparation, had led to this moment. Time to roll the dice, he said, pulling the grenade's pin. On my mark, run for the shuttle. Don't stop for anything. He met her opal eyes one last time. Trust me? Nyari's grip on his hand tightened. Trust goes both ways, Marcus Reynolds. With a nod, Marcus raised the grenade. 3, 2, 1. The device arced through the air, its quantum core already beginning to pulse with building energy. The architect's agents realized the threat too late, their attempts to shoot it down passing harmlessly through the space where it had been microseconds before. The explosion wasn't visible to human eyes, but Marcus felt it in every cell of his body, a wave of quantum disruption that shut down every piece of advanced technology in the bay. The agents' stealth suits failed spectacularly, leaving them fully visible and momentarily vulnerable. Their reality-warping weapons sputtered and died. Now! Marcus shouted, and they ran. Behind them, the agents were already recovering, pulling conventional weapons as their primary systems failed. Bullets replaced reality-warping energy bolts, sparking off metal as Marcus and Nyari sprinted for the shuttle. They reached the airlock just as the quantum pulse's effects began to fade. Marcus slammed his hand on the emergency launch sequence even before the inner door finished closing. The shuttle's engines, protected by his modifications, roared to life. As they strapped in, alarms blaring around them, Nyari held up the crystal. It pulsed with unchanged brightness, completely unaffected by the quantum pulse. Ready to change the universe? She asked. Marcus engaged the launch sequence, feeling the shuttle break free from its cradle. Ready or not, here we come. The shuttle burst from the bay into open space, leaving behind a station in chaos and agents of a higher dimensional power who were about to learn that sometimes the most dangerous weapon isn't technology, it's the human capacity for adaptation, preparation, and the stubborn refusal to remain controlled. The endgame was about to begin. The shuttle's engines burned hot against the void of space, pushing them away from Ganymede Station at maximum acceleration. Through the viewport, Marcus could see the hostile ships beginning to adjust their positions, preparing for pursuit. Their sleek forms seemed to bend reality around them, making them difficult to focus on directly. They're powering up their dimensional drives, Nyari said, her hands dancing over the shuttle's modified control interface. Once they lock onto us, they can predict and intercept every possible course we might take. Marcus nodded, already implementing the first part of his escape plan. Good thing we're not going to be here when they fire. He pulled up a hidden menu on his console, revealing systems that definitely weren't standard shuttle equipment. Remember how I said I've spent 5 years trying to understand what I saw during the Proxima incident? Nyari's opal eyes widened as she recognized the equations scrolling across the screen. You reverse-engineered their technology? Not exactly. Marcus's fingers flew across the controls as the hostile ships drew closer. But what I saw that day, the way space folded in on itself, I couldn't stop thinking about it. Couldn't stop dreaming about it. So I started experimenting, building things based on those dreams. The shuttle's hidden systems hummed to life, creating harmonics that seemed to resonate with something just beyond normal spacetime. The crystal in Nyari's hands began pulsing in sync with the vibrations. The crystal, she said suddenly, understanding dawning. It's responding to your technology. But that should be impossible unless... She trailed off, staring at Marcus with new appreciation. Unless I was already starting to perceive things the way they do, Marcus finished. Like you said, natural evolution. The architects didn't guide this. They couldn't control it. He checked their pursuers' positions one last time. Ready to see if my impossible dreams can get us out of here? Nyari held up the crystal, which was now glowing brightly enough to illuminate the entire cockpit. Together, Marcus activated the final sequence, and reality shifted. The sensation was familiar to him now, the same thing he'd experienced during the Proxima incident. Space around the shuttle began to fold, not in the controlled way the architect's technology managed it, but in a wild, natural pattern that followed the laws of a higher dimension. Through the viewport, they could see their pursuers firing their weapons, but the energy bursts seemed to curve around them, following paths that made sense only in geometries humans weren't meant to understand. The crystal's glow intensified, and Nyari gasped as new information flooded her consciousness. "Marcus," she said urgently, "the crystal, it's not just showing me their network. It's showing me everything. The way they think, the way they perceive reality. And your modifications to this shuttle, you've been unconsciously replicating their fundamental principles without even knowing it." The hostile ships were attempting to follow them now, their own dimensional drives creating controlled tears in spacetime. But Marcus's jerry-rigged system, powered by human intuition and evolution rather than controlled technological advancement, was doing something they couldn't predict. "We're not just running," Marcus realized, watching the patterns form around them. "We're about to broadcast everything. The crystal's using our jump to transmit its data through their own network." Nyari's expression was one of wonder. The perfect solution, they built their network to transmit across dimensional barriers. By jumping through higher dimensional space in an uncontrolled way. "We're forcing their own systems to carry the signal," Marcus finished. "Every piece of their technology, every implant they've given both our species, every hidden network node, they're all about to receive the truth." The shuttle systems reached their peak, and reality folded completely around them. For a moment, Marcus perceived space the way the architects did, as a malleable thing, full of possibilities and connections. He saw their network spanning galaxies, saw the subtle manipulations they'd woven through countless civilizations, and saw those manipulations beginning to unravel as the crystal's data propagated through their own systems. When they emerged from the fold, Earth's solar system was spread out before them. Behind them, the hostile ships had broken off pursuit, their crews likely dealing with the cascade of revelations now flooding through their systems. The crystal's glow had dimmed to a soft pulse, its work done. "It's going to be chaos," Nyari said softly, looking out at the stars. "Both our civilizations learning the truth at once. Learning what's been done to us, and what we might become without their influence." Marcus reached over and took her hand, feeling that familiar tingling sensation. "Chaos can be good. It means things can change." He smiled slightly. "Besides, if humanity and the Concordat are going to face this brave new universe, better to do it together, don't you think?" Nyari returned his smile, her alien features somehow more familiar now. "Together," she agreed. "Though the architects won't give up easily. They've invested too much in their experiment. Let them try to stop us." Marcus began plotting a course toward Earth, where he could already see unusual activity suggesting the data was having its effect. Humanity's greatest strength isn't our technology or our potential for evolution. It's our stubborn refusal to be controlled, our ability to adapt, to take the impossible and make it possible. He glanced at Nyari, seeing in her opal eyes the same determination he felt. "Ready to help two civilizations learn to stand on their own? With you?" She squeezed his hand. "Always." The shuttle moved forward through space, carrying with it the seeds of change for two civilizations. Behind them, the carefully maintained web of control that had guided humanity and the Concordat for millennia was unraveling, replaced by something new, something uncontrolled, unpredictable, and ultimately more powerful than any manipulation could ever be: freedom. The architects had sought to guide evolution according to their plan. Instead, they had created the conditions for their own obsolescence, as the species they tried to control learned to see the universe through their own eyes, in their own way. The future was uncertain, but it would be their future, chosen freely and faced together. And that made all the difference.